and sailboat racing is as much a part of our culture today as it was over 100 years ago. This tradition of competitive sailing began around 1830 as more New Orleanians discovered the cool breezes of the Mississippi Gulf Coast and fled the mosquitoes and disease of the hot city to spend the summer in the pass. Social life centered around the fashionable Pass Christian Hotel, where the Southern Yacht Club was organized in 1849, and the first regatta was held. The Biloxi Regatta Club's sailing vessel Flirt won the silver pitcher. Biloxi soon became the center of yachting as seafood cannery owners raced their large fleets of schooners in the regattas during the off-season. This led to a highly competitive sailing culture, with sailors demanding faster boats from the local boat builders. The story of the sailing sloop Nydia began when John Rawlins of the Southern Gulf Coast Yachting Association wanted the fastest boat on the water. He turned to his friend Thomas Sully, an architect who grew up in Mississippi City, to design the latest racing model, a sandbagger sloop. Boat design was Sully's first love. Biloxi master boat builder William N. Johnson was hired to build Nydia. Johnson had a reputation for building the finest working schooners, sail, and power yachts on the coast. In 1897, the Biloxi Herald said that Nydia is a product of Biloxi, and all Biloxians are proud of the record she has made upon her first appearance on the race course. Thus was launched a great racing career for the Nydia. Over 100 years ago, the Johnson Shipyard was located only 6 blocks away from the new Maritime and Seafood Museum on Biloxi Bay in Point Cadet, where Nydia is housed today. Crewing with Rawlins aboard Nydia was an 18-year-old college student, A. Baldwin Wood. His job was moving sandbags from side to side and manning the bailing bucket. They raced and won for the next several years. During this time, Wood graduated with honors as an engineer from Tulane University and immediately took employment with the Sewerage and Water Board of New Orleans. Still interested in sailboat racing, in the fall of 1904, Wood bought Nydia from Rawlins. By 1907, Wood was on a roll. He defeated his old nemesis Invader in the 58th Southern Yacht Club Regatta and went on to win the Pass Christian Regatta and the Bay Waveland Regatta that same year. In 1908, Baldwin Wood sailed Nydia to victory in all 4 regattas that year, forming an inseparable bond with Nydia. In 1910, Wood retired Nydia to pleasure sailing while he focused on drainage problems at his job with the Sewerage and Water Board. Wood's solution was inventing the huge wood screw pump that keeps New Orleans dry. His pumps are still used today to drain lowlands throughout the world. In 1912, Wood bought the Biloxi Beach home that Thomas Sully designed for the Louisiana Lottery president Charles Howard. It came equipped with its own lighthouse that Wood used to illuminate Nydia at her night mooring. During the winter, Nydia was stored in her shed behind the carriage house. Wood decided to downsize Nydia's rigging so he could handle it by himself. Wood took Nydia to Jackie Jack Kovacevic, who had been Johnson's foreman when Nydia was built. Now, master boat builder Jackie Jack owned the shipyard.
Okay, on the original boat, the shear was approximately about in this area right here. And she was a sandbagger, what they used to call a sandbagger yacht. And when Mr. Wood bought the boat, he wanted to keep it, more or less convert it to a cruiser. So he had Tony Jack Kovacevic add 3 strakes of planking to her to increase her freeboard, so when she would heel, wouldn't take on quite so much water. And the job was done so well that I would have staked my reputation on this assessment that this boat had never been touched before. It was original. And when I got inside, I discovered the original framing had come to around in this area right here. And I was totally amazed at the results. But it had actually been added to. But it was a very professional job.
Wood and Nydia experienced almost idyllic sailing years during the next 4 decades. He and his wife Nola enjoyed their Biloxi Beach home Winla with its acres of oaks, view of the water, stables for horses, their dogs, and a special shed for Nydia. Moving Nydia from the shed was no easy task, according to a young neighbor and friend, Tom Deneg. Wood mounted a cradle on the wheels of an old horse-drawn fire wagon to move Nydia. The effort, repeated every winter and summer, required several strong men and always attracted a crowd to watch it cross Highway 90. During this time, Wood commuted weekly to his job as superintendent of the New Orleans Sewerage and Water Board, catching the Hummingbird in Biloxi every Monday morning. When he arrived back in Biloxi at noon Friday, his servant George would pick him up and have Nydia in readiness for Wood's weekend sail to Horn Island or exploring parts of Deer Island he owned. He described these trips as his way of communing with nature. Tom Deneg and his family would watch Nydia arriving back like clockwork at noon every Sunday. Wood and Nola would have dinner and spend the evening together. Even though Wood's worldwide patents on his pump designs were making him wealthy, he loved his work and continued at the Sewerage and Water Board. Louis Gorenflow relates his father's accounts of the events of that fateful morning on May 10, 1956, when Wood and Nydia were sailing to Horn Island.
And he often saw Mr. Wood, and they would wave to one another. And he was out there on the Sound one day, and so was Mr. Baldwin Wood with his beloved Nydia. And Daddy noticed that after he waved, he slowly sank to his knees. And then he crumpled onto the cabin floor of the Nydia. And at that point, the sails filled completely, and the boat went in the direction of a pier with heavy pilings. As my father described it, with a bone in its teeth. It was really running. And aboard the boat that time was a expert sailor by the name of Uncle Joe. But he caught up with and put Mr. Nikovich aboard, and he brought her into the wind and brought her to a standstill.
Baldwin Wood had died at the tiller of the boat he loved. He and Nydia had both made their last sail together. However, Wood could not imagine Nydia falling into less caring hands and made careful provision for her future. Wood's will made a substantial bequest to Tulane University and gave them responsibility to carefully preserve Nydia and her spars for 99 years. In 1962, Nydia was finally moved from the shed at Winla to her new home on the Tulane campus. Here, she remained quietly on display for the next 40 years. Nydia became an issue again in 2002 when Tulane University announced that she must be moved to accommodate the new university center. Friends of Nydia, a group with Oliver Counts as chairman, was formed to preserve Nydia as Baldwin Wood intended. Tulane addresses those concerns, and 1 month later, she is moved to Meyer Yacht Service Shipyard at West End. Members of the Friends of Nydia, under new chairman Peter Beer, are concerned about the risk of hurricane exposure and push strongly to move her to a more secure location. As a result, on August 9, 2005, Nydia is moved from West End to Tulane University's Belle Chase campus. A showing of the original model of Nydia, built to scale by Edward Lewis, is scheduled.
My name is Ed Lewis, and it was my privilege to make this model for the Friends of the Nydia. Initially, I was introduced to Judge Beer and Dr. Bruce, who had started up the Friends of the Nydia. They were looking to have a model built to promote the preservation of the big Nydia. This model is in fact the highlight of my retired career. This one has my heart.
It is then canceled less than 3 weeks later on August 29th, when New Orleans and the West End is devastated by Hurricane Katrina. Had it not been for the firm insistence of the Wood family, her long story could have ended right there, says Robert Bruce, secretary of the Friends of the Nydia. In the aftermath of Katrina, negotiations were begun that resulted in Nydia being returned to her Gulf Coast home. Nydia departed Belle Chase on July 1, 2009, and arrived at the Seaway Marine Center in Gulfport the next day. Here, master shipbuilder David George, working with a team of volunteers, began his labor of love restoration while Nydia's new home, the Maritime and Seafood Industry Museum, was under construction.
The bow of the boat, over 110 years of boat repair and handiwork, have become almost unattached. So I have maintained this line to the perfection of the original design and build, and I reconstructed all of this. The stem and the forefoot and the cutwater is all out of original material as the boat was actually built of. And all this has been put back exactly like the day that this boat was launched, and it carries on from about this area right in here forward. And I also added 2 whales of planking that run in the midship section of the boat, right in the turn of the bilge, to give her stability. When you put the stand under, she won't cave in. To give her rigidity. Before she was just about to fall to pieces. This piece right here was basically one of the main focal points of the whole bow. This was cast in Biloxi, specially made for this boat and this bow. All of these lines that you see here had to coincide with this one casting, which was a heck of a job, but I waited a whole year to be able to put this piece in, and thank God that it fit. After carving all this back into shape, this original piece had to be fitted and carved and notched. This piece goes back that far. It holds the whole rigging up. I mean, this goes to the sprit and then to the top of the mast. If you lose this, everything goes. So this is a very critical part of the boat. But no, this was original. And like I said, when I put it back in there, to drill it, to bore it, to fit it, it couldn't be off. It had to be right on the money. And thank God I lucked out and it fit.
Nydia is now permanently displayed in the new Maritime and Seafood Industry Museum on Point Cadet, looking out over the Biloxi Bay waters she commanded over 100 years ago. She is the last remaining example of William Nels Johnson's craftsmanship and represents the classic boat-building tradition that distinguished a generation of Biloxi boatwrights in the late 19th century. The Nydia's story lives on because of one man's love for his very special sailboat.